Hi, I'm Shayna.
And I'm Tracy, and we are the creators of The Pump and Dump Show. We are moms, but we were women first. And in this podcast, we explore what it's like to be a woman who also happens to be a mom.
Before we were moms, we were women. Before we were moms, we were chilling. We were pumping and dumping. We're talking about something. This is the Pump and Dump Podcast.
Welcome back, breeders.
Welcome back, band of mothers.
This week's episode is one we've wanted to do for a pretty long time. We're going to talk about breastfeeding.
All about boobs.
And, you know, I think whether you breastfed or not, or you breastfed 8 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago, or you're breastfeeding right now, there's a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much information and misinformation out there. And we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, we both have our own breastfeeding journeys, and our
Neither was really successful.
both of which were incredibly sad cake. And our guest today, Amanda Ogden, is just a wealth of knowledge. She's one of those people that was put on this earth to change it and make it better. And she's so talented and wonderful. And even if you are like us and your breastfeeding days are gone, I think this episode's really worth a listen because you're going to learn some stuff and maybe just feel a little bit better.
We're just excited to share her with all of you. So
enjoy.
We got a special guest. Special guest.
we have Amanda Ogden here with us today. She
The
is
Amanda Ogden.
The Amanda Ogden. The Amanda Ogden I wish that I had known when I was breastfeeding my own children. She is a lactation consultant here in Denver with an organization that we'll tell you a lot more about called the Mama'hood. But welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. I'm
So-
happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. Amanda, give us a little background on your background.
All right. I'm a nurse. I started as a labor and delivery nurse, and then I fell in love with breastfeeding support. And I worked in hospital settings for a long time. And then 8 years ago, we opened the Mama'hood in Northwest Denver, just above downtown. And it's been amazing. I've seen over 25,000 women for breastfeeding support, which I find
You
Mind-
personally?
Do you know that's over
Boggling.
50,000 boobs?
I am aware. There was that
She's
one
like,
lady with 3,
What?
and then the one. No,
No.
I'm kidding. I'm
Darn
kidding.
it.
I have to do a whole
I'm
podcast
kidding.
episode on 3 boobs.
Oh my gosh, 25,000 women.
I know. And the other cool thing is that when we opened, those babies that we opened, they're in 2nd grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we met you.
Yeah.
We had,
When
it's
we had
like the Pump and
babies.
Dump show
Yeah.
was around that time too
Yes.
when we started and met you guys.
Yeah,
Holy moly.
Oh my
I
gosh.
know.
So you fell in love with
Breastfeeding support, because there's a lot of great birth supporters. I thought I would be a midwife, but there are not a lot of great breastfeeding support providers out there.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of shame around how we feed our kids and what we feed our kids. And we've made breastfeeding so complicated in our culture that it's
Mm.
almost impossible to make it work. And moms just need some really great practical, pragmatic support.
Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, I constantly think to myself how bullied I felt and how shameful I felt at not being able to breastfeed my kids as long
Mm-hmm.
as I wanted to. I mean, it was like such an emotional struggle on top of a physical struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that you existed.
I know.
And I called everywhere I could think of in Denver. I mean, you and I, we've talked about this, but like I could not find, I went to all the other places that were
Mhm.
available and none of them gave a shit
Yeah.
about my boobs. Like I sat in breastfeeding circles and had moms look at me when I was the one crying, holding my baby, and nobody helped. No one talked to me. I paid hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to have one-on-ones with people that are like, oh, well, you'll figure it out. You know, I think I've talked about this before in the hospital. I called the hospital back where I was for 5 days because I couldn't even leave the hospital because I was sick. I called that lactation consultant and she was like, well, you're not here anymore, so I can't help you. I literally could not find help anywhere.
It's such crap. Like,
It's such crap. And
we-
my gynecologist, they didn't know shit.
no,
They-
no.
They were treating me for an infection and that's it.
Yeah.
And then never told me why I got the infection,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And the problem is that breastfeeding and feeding our kids is wellness, and doctors are trained in pathology. So doctors know a lot about what to do to help you with an infection, but they don't know. They haven't been trained in nutrition, parenting,
Mhm.
sleep, or eating. And breastfeeding is just the first food. So nobody knows how to help you. And hospital-based lactation consultants know a lot about the first 3 days, but they don't know how the story ends.
Mm.
And so they're not also well versed in how to help. So it is a problem. We've promoted the hell out of breastfeeding. Everybody knows breast is best. Breast is best. We need to shut the hell up about that and make it make it doable for everybody who wants to.
Do you feel like people who struggle, that often a percentage of those people are struggling because of the stress alone, or
Sure.
is it physical difficulty?
I think both. I think it starts with pain. So if we don't fix pain in the first 2 to 4 weeks, breastfeeding is lost, of course. We cannot expect women to be in pain. We have told everybody this is a natural thing to do, but it's not, because unless we grew up in the cave and saw it as tiny babies, it's not embodied knowledge. We don't know how to do this. And so people are left nowhere. And they've been told they have to do it.
So when moms come to see you, where are they at? Like what stage, how young are their babies, and what are their major issues? I mean, obviously they're having trouble breastfeeding, but what is the trouble?
Sure. Usually it's pain. So usually they have really sore, damaged nipples. And often it's milk supply challenges too.
Mhm.
Tracy's nipples just fell off.
Yeah. I mean, I have
mean,
a gallery of horror shows. I could ruin nipples for literally
mine
everyone.
were. I can't even believe mine healed. My one split in
Ugh.
half. It looked like someone took
Yeah.
a knife and
Oh,
just
jeez.
and like
Yeah.
filleted my boob.
Yeah,
And I still breastfed on it
right.
because I was desperate to keep feeding her.
Sure. It's our
And-
first job as a mammal,
Yeah.
right? Is to feed our young.
Yeah.
And so moms will endure insane amounts of trauma, and they shouldn't have to. It's not a mom's fault if she's not able to breastfeed. It's an ignorant medical system that doesn't know how to help you.
So, okay, so whose fault, or like what's the fault then if you don't know how to breastfeed?
The fault is that it never should have gotten to that point.
Okay.
Like, providers should have to know how babies eat. We cannot have pediatricians that don't know how babies eat and don't know about infant oral anatomy and how to look at a baby's mouth and look at a mom's boob. It's a dyad. But the problem is the pediatrician is only looking at the baby. The OB or midwife is only looking at the mom, and nobody's looking at how the two people fit together.
Mm.
And then we have a million old myths and old wives' tales and silly sayings that just are not true.
Like what?
Well, one is that that the foods you're supposed to avoid while you're
Mm.
breastfeeding, or that beer increases milk supply, or that oatmeal. I mean, oats make cows make oat milk. So somehow we decided that lactation cookies make moms make milk, which is not going to hurt anything. But
that doesn't.
no.
Wait,
no.
you're telling me that Guinness does not make you?
Because I was drinking Guinness and eating the lactation cookies.
Sure.
And sure as hell didn't help.
I mean,
But then I
wouldn't-
blamed myself for it. I thought it was
Sure.
me. Like I didn't drink the Guinness correctly or something.
Well, I was drinking the shit out of the Guinness, and everything was fine. So
so it was
for a
obviously-
while,
right?
So okay, so all right, so lactation, that's interesting. So the breastfeeding helpers that are on the market, is all of that BS, or is there like is fenugreek?
No,
No,
Yeah.
none of it.
Oh, not the fenugreek.
No,
I smelled like maple syrup for like
Yeah.
a year.
yeah. Okay. There are a lot of things that were traditional foods that would have been useful. Now, fenugreek is helpful for people who have any kind of blood sugar instability, which what we didn't realize is that insulin plays a crucial role in making milk. So this is my new passion, is hormones and breastfeeding.
Mm.
The people where fenugreek changed their ability to make milk or improve their milk making are people who probably have subclinical blood sugar issues. They're either not utilizing glucose well or not utilizing insulin well. So they're not pre-diabetic, they're not metabolic syndrome. Their numbers are still subclinical, but they've got enough wobbliness, maybe hangry,
Mm.
which no one's going to diagnose anything on hangry. But hangry is a thing. If you have
Yeah.
a lot of blood sugar instability, fenugreek is an herb that's put in Indian cooking because it helps you digest food better.
'Cause
It
of the fennel.
also normalizes blood sugar.
Mm.
So the people where fenugreek made any improvement in milk supply probably have a little wobbliness in their insulin or glucose utilization.
Oh, interesting.
I know.
Wow.
So yeah, we just have so many questions. So what would you say is the key to a healthy breastfeeding life? Like, is it just really figuring out that relationship with the baby, with fitting and like the way that they latch, or like what's the secret?
Yeah. So the Sound of Music, right? The musical
Mhm.
Sound of Music.
Yeah.
Start at the very beginning. Okay, I always think start at the very beginning. So with breastfeeding, starting at the very beginning means putting the kid in the right position, which is a primate position with its head high and its bottom low. So moms don't breastfeed, babies breastfeed. All humans have an innate ability to latch to the breast. That's why they do that breast crawl thing. So after birth, placed on the belly, they'll crawl to the breast because they have a breastfeeding instinct.
Right.
Okay. So if we've started at the very beginning and we've placed the baby and allowed the baby to do the thing that all babies know how to do, and then the baby gets there and it still hurts, it's probably not positioning. We should be curious about something else that could be going on, like tongue tie or lip tie, which are very common. They're common because humans have big workarounds. And so we always breastfed collaboratively in the cave. One nursing mama wouldn't have nursed just her own baby. She would have nursed other babies. We would have co-nursed.
Grapes of Wrath style.
Right. Milk of human kindness. Grapes of wrath.
Yes.
Human milk is the milk of human kindness. So if a mama was having challenges, another mom would have said, let me try. And if that baby pinched her nipple, we would have looked in the kid's mouth and said, well, here's the thing. And we would have released that tiny piece of skin under the tongue that was causing the baby to pinch the nipple. So we just are practical, pragmatic people, and we would have figured it out together. Because humans have workarounds and big brains, that's why evolutionarily the tethers didn't go away. They happen in the animal world, but that's the runt of the litter that cannot feed. And so that baby doesn't make it. And so that evolutionary genetic material isn't passed down. Because humans have a big brain, we're seeing more and more ties because it's genetically dominant. And so the babies that have it, their babies will have it, and their kids will have it, and on and on and on.
The ties in the mouth.
Ties,
Underneath the tongue.
tether. A tether under the tongue or a tether above, inside your mouth,
Right.
lip towards your nose. Everybody's got them.
Yeah.
Everybody can feel them.
Yeah.
It's just
Mhm.
sometimes they're a little too tight.
Got it.
Like my daughter's, which I figured out after you telling me, not even seeing my kid. And that's why she has the space in her teeth.
Yeah.
It's that tether that caused the space
Right.
in her teeth.
Right.
But I think she also has it under her tongue too.
That's why your nipple was flayed
Right.
open.
Which is why my sister couldn't breastfeed and
Right.
why my mom couldn't breastfeed. I didn't
Right.
realize it was genetic. So everyone in my family has.
So this tiny,
tether.
tiny, tiny piece of skin was profound. And how did you persist? How did you keep going with breastfeeding?
Yeah, I did until I literally dried up. I mean, there was nothing. I wasn't well, that was the other thing. It was like, so I think a lot of moms, so the baby can't latch, but I think there's something in your brain that says, well, I still should be able to be producing milk.
Right.
And I couldn't do either. My boobs had exploded. My nipples were falling off. I still wasn't at my best. I think I pumped like 2 ounces. And my daughter wasn't latching. She was at that point almost on a bottle, and I was pumping.
Right.
So why wasn't I even producing?
Because there's 2 parts. Baby has to take milk out. And initially when she was tiny, hormonally, your body is driven to push milk out. But if baby doesn't start learning to elicit milk, and a baby with a tether can chew the nipple, but cannot elicit milk. So without that ability to elicit, pretty soon your body stopped getting the signal. And so you stop making the milk. So we get the call frequently at 3 months. I used to have lots of milk.
Mm-hmm.
Breastfeeding was damaging, but we toughed it out. And now I'm not making any milk. Where did the milk go? It was because hormonally, prolactin starts very high right after birth. But by 10 weeks, it falls to pre-pregnancy levels because the baby at that point is supposed to be able to drive supply.
What's prolactin?
Oh, prolactin is the hormone that tells your body to make milk.
Okay.
So prolactin drives your milk supply. But as it falls, as it naturally should, and the baby can't elicit it, milk supply goes away. So all these women who have been unable to be helped well, because nobody caught the tether and they were in pain, and nobody figured out where their milk supply went, now they're angry. rightly so, because everybody said breast is best, and they feel like shitty parents because they're not breastfeeding.
Mm-hmm.
It was never their fault. It was never your fault. It was never your fault. This never should have been knowledge that some poor new mom is supposed to know. It's taken me all of my 25 years in this field to know what I know.
So what about both of my kids were very easy breastfeeders at first, and I
Mhm.
was producing a fine amount of milk. I never had a freezer full, but it was fine.
Mhm.
And then around that 3-month period with both of them, it got harder and harder. So I would pump every hour. I would work and work and work to get that supply back up, and they still were eating, but then they both quit me. Like they quit me.
Sure.
They push away. They didn't want, because maybe I just wasn't making enough for them, and they were
Right.
huge. But like according to human, I mean, aren't I
Science.
supposed to be able to make as much as they need?
Yeah. And so without being able to go back and see what was happening,
Yeah.
if a mom's supply is getting lower and wobblier, the way I think of it is the baby gives up on the unreliable restaurant. So those babies decided that your breasts were not reliably making food, and they sort of gave up and decided they needed a more reliable food source, which food in a bottle then became more trusted.
Okay. Yeah. And that was Tracy and I were discussing this. Like we gave both the kids bottles of breast milk super, super early because it was just so much great. It was so great to have other people be able to feed them. So you think they were just having a more successful,
I don't think that they became accustomed to the bottle. I think that we always gave the baby a bottle, air quotes. It just was a different mama. So like in the cave, when you needed to go do something, you would have handed your baby off to another mom. She would have fed your kid. So that was the bottle of milk. That was the respite bottle. I think there was other things going on with you, and I would have to do a deep dive with you to figure out where your milk went.
Well, I was like, you had, especially with Bowie. I mean, Georgia was so tiny. I'm like, I remember you were so stressed. I mean, is stress
inhibits milk ejection. It doesn't inhibit milk production.
But I also was like sneaking cigarettes and drinking whiskey the second he went down for his late night. So I'm pretty sure I didn't taste very good.
Well, that might
Let's be
true.
honest.
Okay. Does that affect it?
It would have affected the taste of the milk. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because there was a point.
But I still don't think he rejected the whiskey and cigarettes. I don't. I think it was more complicated. And I think the stress of everything was why you were reaching for a whiskey and cigarettes.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was like, what was that? Like the 8 o'clock lay down before the like 12 o'clock feeding. Like as soon as I got, because that's when the other baby would go down, and I would go out on my front porch with just one whiskey and I'd have like one cigarette. And it was my time to destroy myself.
Sure.
Like
Sure.
total control. Like nobody else can do this. Like I need to be in control of my own destruction at this
Sure.
moment. I didn't do that with the first kid, but she breastfed for about 6 months. Bo, it was about 4 months when he quit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're saying moms should naturally be able to produce milk. So if you're, what's it called? Prolactin. If the prolactin goes down,
Mhm.
it can stay, I'm assuming then it can stay at a low level indefinitely because moms breastfeed for years.
Right.
So how does that, how do those moms do it?
The way I think of it is prolactin is a switch that turns on breastfeeding, turns on milk making, but we don't need prolactin to maintain it if the baby's mouth works well and the mom's hormones work well.
Okay, so it goes back to hormones.
It goes back to hormones. So I think of it as a hormonal stew. We need the right amounts of prolactin, but we also need the right amounts of insulin.
Okay.
And because women aren't in charge of much yet, it's changing. But I went to this conference and this doctor apologized to a room full of women and said all of medicine has looked at the diseases of middle-aged white males,
Oh, interesting.
right? So we know a lot about erectile dysfunction. We don't know anything about young women and hormone levels.
We talk about this all the time.
Preach.
Yeah.
I am the
Preach.
I am the poster child of no one knowing what the hell to do with my hormones.
Wow.
It's ruined my life essentially. Certainly
Nobody
inhibited me
cares.
from having more children.
Nobody cares. So we weren't in power. And I get it. Like if we'd been in power, we would know nothing about erectile dysfunction and we would know everything about hormones of the childbearing years.
Mm.
But nobody's asked the questions.
So the hormones postpartum
Uh-huh.
that you need to know about or be very cognizant about are what?
All right. Some people have a little bit too much testosterone,
Mm-hmm.
hyperandrogenism. Some people just have a little bit of wobbliness with insulin. And again, some of the clues that we're seeing are if a mama says she didn't pass her 1 hour glucose challenge, you know how when you're pregnant at about 28 weeks, they
Mhm.
make you drink
The
the stuff?
drink.
Yeah. Some people don't pass their 1 hour, but they do pass their 3 hour. If they don't pass their 1 hour, it means that they have a little bit of wobbliness, but their pancreas is still healthy enough that they pass their 3 hour. So then everybody says, yay, never mind, you don't have gestational diabetes. True. But you may have enough wobbliness in your hormones that making milk without some help might be a challenge.
Okay.
In the cave, we probably didn't have these hormonal issues. We were having kids much, much younger. So we
Mhm.
would have been, our childbearing years would have been like 12 through whatever,
Yeah.
20. And all of our pancreases probably worked, pancreas, I'm not sure. Anyway, everybody's pancreas probably worked fairly well. But now that we're all having babies many women are having babies in their 30s and even early 40s, we've got some hormonal stuff going on.
Oh, that's so interesting. Right. And so what can you do?
Lots. There is a plant called galen. Galen and so the herb goat's root comes from the plant galen. There's also a medication called metformin that comes from the same plant, galen. Metformin normalizes insulin utilization. So it won't make you hypo or hyper insulin sugar. So it won't make you hypoglycemic and it won't make you hyperglycemic. It just normalizes insulin utilization. So if there's these subclinical wobbliness, it's a really inexpensive medication. And we know if it's going to work in about a week.
That's fascinating because I had problems with my glucose test. Yeah, I can't remember because it was so long ago, but I remember having to go back and take it a few times, and nobody ever liked the results. And then they blamed it on preeclampsia, which they diagnosed basically the day I had to have an emergency
Right.
C-section.
But that's so funny because your blood pressure wasn't messing with your glucose. So
My blood pressure was horrible.
but those were two separate problems.
Oh, interesting.
I'm saying your elevated blood pressure wasn't doing anything to your glucose levels.
Does it normally?
No,
Oh, yeah.
those two
Oh,
systems are
they're
totally
unrelated.
Gotcha.
they're unrelated. So you had like a whole. So here's the thing: you were wanting to breastfeed your babies. You had babies that had tethers.
Mm-hmm.
So we had ties, familial ties.
Mm-hmm.
So it must be on your mom's
On
side
my
of the
mom's
family.
side, yeah.
So your mom, your sister, you must have had a tie. Your kids had ties. Okay.
My
Then you
daughter's
had-
kid will probably have ties.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then you had some glucose utilization issues, and they weren't looking for it in you because you're tall, you're lean, you're healthy, you're young.
Interesting.
So they weren't thinking that this might, and they didn't even know that it would impact your ability to make milk.
And it's so fascinating because when you said hangry, like those months just came flooding back. I was constantly crashing, constantly like I never felt balanced
Right.
like from food. I was constantly like starving and then overeating and trying to get myself at like a
Regulated.
stasis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I know. And then the blood pressure wasn't helpful either.
No.
No. But blood pressure wouldn't impact milk making ability.
Okay.
It wouldn't.
Huh.
So it wouldn't, but it wasn't helpful that you also had all of these issues.
Right.
So again, while breastfeeding is natural, it's also a little bit complicated, but nobody cares about it. It doesn't make anybody
Nobody cares
any
about
money.
it except everybody cares about it.
Right.
Right.
Women care, but people are not asking the right questions.
Uh-huh.
It's going to shift because you guys, this generation, you're going to start asking the right questions. You're going to start insisting on better answers.
You hear that, ladies?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and not to call out, I'll be interested I'm actually very interested to hear what you think about this institution, but I got the La Leche book.
Sure.
And my husband, I tell the story a million times, like walked in on me in bed, weeping,
Mm-hmm.
reading this terrible book that did nothing but make me feel bad about myself.
Right.
All it was example after example of these super women who I mean, I'll never forget. This woman's like, I had my baby in the morning and you guys saw me at Target at 4:00 that afternoon with my newborn. And I am, it was story after story like that. My
Mhm.
baby crawled up from my knees and crawled up to my
Mhm.
boob and stayed there for 4 years. And
Mhm.
I've breastfed 49 children.
Mhm.
And there was no tips,
Mm-mm.
no information. Now that I'm talking to you, like it offered nothing. And I poured over that until
Mhm.
finally he was like, this book is a piece of shit. And he threw it away. He
Right.
was like, these are horrible people that are doing nothing to help
Right.
you. And he made me stop reading it.
And the problem is, it was just a naive answer. You were going there for a really complicated medical situation, and that book cannot help that. That book did not know about tethers. Neither did I.
Well, I mean, so you're saying like the whole La Leche League. I mean, they're the ones that would like carrying the torch of breastfeeding.
Right. And again, you have to remember, back in the 50s when La Leche League was born, it was these nice ladies that were all together at their same church. And they were like, you know what? No one's really talking about breastfeeding. Let's get together. Now, it was a group that was self-selected by people who were already successful at breastfeeding.
Right.
So their friend at church who had bloody nipples, she wasn't in their crew.
Sure.
Their friend at church with the insulin issues, she wasn't in their crew. So all of these nice ladies assumed that hard work alone makes breastfeeding successful, which pisses me off. All of you nice young women right now just think, well, damn, I'm a real hard worker. I did great in school. I busted my ass forever. I will just work really hard at this.
Yeah.
This is a situation, your complicated breastfeeding situation. All the hard work in the world wouldn't get you there. All right. So the nice ladies, right, back at the church, they're all successful. So they just think simplistically that hard work alone will make breastfeeding successful. Then they said, well, you know what? Nobody's doing any science around this. So they became the doctors. Right? Which is awesome.
Fair enough. Which a lot
right?
of people
It's
become
1950s.
experts, and
No.
yeah.
They wrote our best breastfeeding information. I mean, somebody had to start with the basics, and we actually had to start with breastfeeding works. We had to start there.
Well, and wasn't it like a class issue thing too? Like
Sure.
back when, even in the 60s and 70s, where it was like if you had money and you could have a night nurse, that it was like the rich people didn't breastfeed and the only poor people did. It was like
Sure.
looked
Sure.
down upon kind of thing.
Yeah, like if you had enough money and you could afford formula was thought of. I mean, we were going to the moon, right? So we'd invented Tang.
Mhm.
We're like, it's orange. It's just like orange juice. Whoopsie
Correct.
doodle. Not quite.
Right.
And so we invented powdered formula. And so we liked it. We liked the science-y part of it, like the mixing of the stuff into the water
and it
and
makes your life easier.
more
and-
convenient because breastfeeding is highly inconvenient. It is
Right.
not egalitarian. Only a mama can do it. And it's really, really hard.
Well, and back then too, I mean, it's not like today where you just whip your boob out at a dinner table, totally fine.
Right.
Back
So there was
then it was
stigma.
like you would never do that.
Think about maternity clothes back then. You just
Yeah.
had to wear like a giant smock.
Yeah, to hide it.
I mean, that was maternity clothes. There were no breastfeeding clothes. It was something unsavory that you did behind closed doors. It was
Very inconvenient.
very inconvenient.
Yeah.
So these women started out sort of with good intentions,
Good
but
intention.
with already preconceived prejudices against failure,
right.
and wrote this book, which I guess what you're saying was a good start. It was an honest,
We had to start somewhere.
good intentioned
Yes.
start on some level.
It was just because of the self-selected population, they weren't asking the right questions.
Okay.
They couldn't even yet be curious about all of these complicated outside issues. They were just trying to normalize breastfeeding enough that you could do it in public
Mhm.
without being completely run out of town.
You
And then-
guys, just a side note, when we were at the airport on the way home on Sunday, we were very tired. And I stopped to get one of those like coffees just from like the cooler, like at a kiosk on the way out, and grabbed the coffee and got so distracted by this kick-ass mom who was walking through the airport, breastfeeding her baby, having a conversation while walking.
Amazing.
And I just kind of like followed her away and I stole the goddamn coffee. And Archie, our stage manager, was like, Shay, and had to like call me back because I was
You just
following this woman. I was just like, she's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
And I just stole the coffee.
That's
know.
amazing.
FYI.
Like that's a dream. That's what we all think breastfeeding will look like for us.
Sure.
And then if it doesn't, then it becomes a polarizing issue because people who aren't able to breastfeed become really angry because they were told by simplistic books that hard work is enough.
Angry and embarrassed
Sure.
because the failure
Yeah,
guilt
It
is
feels
epic.
It
Sure.
feels pretty
Crushing.
And then suddenly there's two camps that are mad at each other, breastfeeding and formula, when in fact we should be mad at a system that is
Mm.
ignorant and unable to help us. It isn't the fault of the breast milk.
Hmm.
It isn't, those two camps should not be fighting with each other. Of course, you have to feed your kids something
Mm-hmm.
when you cannot, your boy, 4 months,
Mhm.
when you were no longer able to breastfeed, what are we supposed to say to you?
I just gave him the whiskey.
Right. And the
Straight from the
cigarettes.
bottle.
Right. Just go straight there.
So let's back it up then. So, okay, I'm interested to think what you think of the formula camp
Mhm.
and also what you think of pumping.
Yeah. So of the formula camp, thank God we've got formula. I mean, the fact that some people are able to breastfeed easily is wonderful. For everyone else who has a much more complicated story, thank goodness there's a food we can use,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because throughout history, we've fed babies weird stuff. There used to be, like, in the 1800s, a tray you would slide your baby under a goat. I'm not kidding.
That's
And
amazing.
they would nurse from the teat of the goat.
Would the baby get on the goat?
Yeah.
Wow.
Also got stomped on and pooped on.
I was going to say that
It wasn't a
can't
great
work-
system.
No.
It was not great.
And how pissed was the goat?
I know. The goat's like, for real?
Come on.
I mean, people.
Coach's like, I have to do everything around here.
Yeah.
All right. So formula, fine.
Thank God.
Yeah. Sure.
Right?
And
Yeah.
so when I was, it's so funny. It's only 8 years ago when I was
know.
like doing this for the first time. But I felt like I never even thought about getting just like organic formula. I mean, like what? Where are we now in the formula world? Like, is an unfamil just like something? Is that a no?
Oh, gosh,
Or-
no.
It's
No.
a yes.
It's a food.
Mm-hmm.
It's food, full stop. So, like, would we all like to eat organic and perfect and, like, locally sourced and all of that jazz all of the time? But now we're talking a privilege thing and a class thing.
Yes.
So now there is a super fancy formula that some families are able to get called challah, and it's from Germany, and the ingredients are slightly better. It still isn't human milk. So we can't pretend that human milk isn't still the best food. It is. But if it is inaccessible, then we need to use a different kind of food.
Mm-hmm.
So Enfamil is food.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is we're in such a privileged place that we can imagine that there is a difference between Enfamil and Similac. There really isn't. Some people, formulas are number one shoplifted item, which
Yeah.
breaks my heart.
That is
Yeah.
so depressing. But I get it's so expensive.
makes
It's
sense.
so expensive.
Yeah.
And then and it's expensive, and then to add insult to injury, it's like you're doing it because you can't do. I mean, some people choose to, fair enough. But
course.
if you, like me, you can't do the other thing,
Sure.
and you've already spent at that point thousands of dollars trying to breastfeed, and then
Right.
I'm spending hundreds of dollars, and I couldn't. She wouldn't even take. Not only that, she had reflux on top of everything else, so she couldn't even take like the Good Earth or like the organic stuff. We had to go right to Good Start by Nestle because it's the only thing she could keep down.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
Right? And what a good parent are you?
I don't know. I still feel terrible about it all.
You should feel like a really good
Ugh,
mom
God, you're
because
gonna make me
this was
cry.
never your fault. This was such a complicated thing. There was no way you could have known how to fix this problem.
And
on
we
your
just
own.
didn't know you.
I know.
It's like I'm seriously gonna cry. Oh, it's like so horrible.
It still makes you feel bad to this day.
Mhm.
And that is bullshit. Like, we as women should be so pissed that there are not better answers. It makes me so mad.
And it was like answers that I didn't get from other women. I mean, it'd be
No.
one thing if some dude was like blowing me off. Like I could have at least like reconciled that in my brain. It was other women that were blowing
They
me
didn't
off.
know, though.
Yeah.
And you tried breastfeeding groups and
Oh,
you just
God.
left feeling like shit.
I remember I'd be like, well, I'm going to boob group today. And I would drive like an hour to the one that I found. And I
Mhm.
would cry the entire way home afterwards. Like
Because
nobody,
you saw all of the successes, remembering that that's a self-selected population and they need to band together because breastfeeding is hard culturally.
Mhm.
But you had issues that were beyond their ability to support.
Mhm.
And they didn't have good answers for you. So then
Mm.
you just left feeling like you'd failed yet again.
Mhm.
It's not great.
Okay, so how do you feel about pumping? Talk to us about pumping.
Pumping is a necessary evil in our culture.
Yeah,
Because-
why? Because you mean you keep talking about the cavemen. The cavemen obviously never
Right.
pumped.
No, so the cavemen didn't pump.
They didn't
because
have hand
again,
pumps?
No.
They didn't they could
They
self
had hand
pump.
express, sure. But like they wouldn't have wasted food,
Into like
Sure.
a
Like,
leaf,
you know, right? Like make a
cow
leaf
udder,
funnel.
like a empty cow udder.
Yeah,
like
They
they
just had
may
milk
have.
squirting contests.
Probably.
That's only if men breastfed. They would
Sure.
have milk
So
squirting
again,
contests.
where food is scarce, we really actually would have been very careful with the milk. So we did have hand expression.
Yeah.
Or we would have taken a toddler with us to go pick berries or whatever we were doing, and we would have fed the toddler. We would have left the baby back at the cave that would have been fed by the other nurse and mamas. Like we would have just made it work. So the artificial baby is a pump because that pump is taking milk out of you,
Which is what's keeping the milk going.
which is what keeps the milk going. But the problem is not all pumps are created equal, and not all women respond well to pumps. Now, I suspect maybe, Tracy, that your issue with getting only 2 ounces had more to do with your hangry and your hormonal stew than it did to do that had anything to do with your ability to make milk. I think you were a little bit complicated, and I wish I'd known you.
I wish you'd known me.
I mean,
But 8 years ago, I didn't know what I know now. So because I work in a place where these women, you young women, come to me and say, I will not take no for an answer, you better figure it out. We keep working harder and harder and harder and figuring out, holy crap, the 1 hour thing, like nobody's excited about hangry. So, but in my diagnostic tool, hangry's a clue. Nobody's excited about the 1 hour thing. They say, nope, never mind, you passed the 3 hour. It doesn't mean anything. It actually
Oh, this is
does
the
mean
glucose
something. The
test.
glucose challenge test.
I mean, that's pre-baby.
That's
That's before your baby
that's-
even comes out.
That's the thing. Everybody should have looked for all of your crap before the baby was born.
fascinating.
We need midwives and OBs to have a checklist. They don't even have to have the answer. My big wish in life is that they would know the right questions to ask and then know how to refer you on.
Right, and then pass you on.
They'd be like, holy crap. Tethers are a familial issue. So you have tethers in your
Oh.
family. We're going to fix that right off the bat. You are hangry and you didn't pass your 1 hour. We're going to watch you for insulin issues. Because not everybody that doesn't fail the 1 hour doesn't make a full milk supply. But the ones that don't, we need a quick and easy answer.
That's interesting. And it's fascinating because the information's out there, right? Like I was always told, my mom was like, well, I couldn't breastfeed. My sister, well, I couldn't breastfeed. We tried for a few weeks. It hurt. We bled. We gave up. We got an infection. You're never going to be able to breastfeed. And me being me, I was like, I will change the course of our family history.
Right.
And then I couldn't breastfeed.
Right. Because
But it's out there. So if the doctors had just said, give me a little bit of your family history,
Right.
they would have been able to connect the dots a little bit more.
And they didn't even know to ask the right questions.
Did your mom breastfeed you, Shay?
like a little.
Like a scooch?
She just dropped me at the movies. Yeah, she's. It's funny. My mom has. Whenever you ask her questions like that, she's like, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was pretty minimal.
Yeah,
but that was also culturally like. I believe it was kind of like not. She
Where
didn't
were you
feel
born?
the Los Angeles.
Yeah. So, and what year were you born?
77.
Yeah. So, like, breastfeeding was falling out of favor.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the 70s and 80s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, breastfeeding was really falling out of favor. We were wanting to use formula, and actually, women were being actively discouraged to breastfeed.
Why?
Yeah.
You had to be pretty super crunchy if you thought that breastfeeding was a good idea.
That's interesting because like during that time is also like the rise of the feminist movement, and it was almost like they got it wrong, right? Like it was feminist to not breastfeed because
Sure.
you were eschewing your like
Yeah.
historical
Right.
heritage.
Yeah. Which to some degree, it is a
It's
little
true.
bit anti-feminist. Like you can't part-time breastfeed, right? And so it's very difficult to work outside of the home if you're going to
Right.
breastfeed your kid. It's also the most feminist thing you can do is to say, nobody can tell me how to feed my kid.
Exactly.
And my body does what it does for a reason, and I'm going to figure this out.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So both sides. I get the
Mhm.
women who say this is not a feminist thing to do because it isn't equal. It isn't egalitarian.
Yeah, depends how you look at it.
Right.
For
I
sure.
can see it from both points of view.
Uh-huh. Okay, question for you. On demand or scheduled feeding?
The way I think of that is every mom and baby have a magic number, meaning some mamas make just enough. And so her baby will have to take out milk more often in order to grow and in order to protect her supply than a different mama.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to start with cue feeding, letting the baby tell you how many times he needs food in order to grow and how many times you need to remove milk from your body in order to keep making milk. So everybody has a magic number. Some people, that number might be 12. So if she's reading a book that says your baby should sleep 12 hours at night and only nurse 5 times during the day, breastfeeding's done. Just because she's not taking out milk often enough.
Hmm.
So every kid and every mom is a different dyad.
So
Yeah.
it's not really a choice. You're saying it's more.
It's a
yeah,
physiological.
it's physiological.
It's physiologically
I
driven.
mean, I know people who were like, okay, this is how my mom did it, which was, again,
Mhm.
in the 70s and early 80s. And they would say, it was every 3 hours and that is it. And I have a schedule and it is the only thing I have control of. So I am going to control this.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
You did 3 hours?
Yeah. Well, there was no milk to come out prior to that. But someone told me that. And that's
Sure.
just what I stuck to.
And for
Yeah.
someone, it works great.
Yeah.
And then
I was an
everybody
on
who
demand. I
thinks-
just felt like I was constantly breastfeeding.
Sure. And if you were working really hard to make a supply, which it sounds like you were,
Yeah.
then you knew that if you didn't keep nursing often enough, your baby was hungry and yelling at you. And so you were always chasing your tail. So in your head, rightly so,
Constantly breastfeeding.
you were constantly breastfeeding because you're a hard worker.
Right. But I did get to watch all of Downton Abbey
Thank goodness.
and Homeland.
weird.
That's good.
I mean,
It's
that
the
was
one
all
time in
during
your life.
breastfeeding.
It's the one time in your life where you actually have. It's very difficult to
Hours
read
and hours.
and
Yeah, you
breastfeed.
can't read.
I
I want to
tried
give a
to
shout
read.
out to Stephen Colbert because he and I got real close.
You got real close.
Yeah.
in the middle. For some reason, Stephen Colbert got me through the dark nights, just me and
Oh
him
my
hanging
God.
out.
I would love to hear all of our listeners,
know.
like what
Everyone
you
has the
watched and
show.
did while
I
you
know.
were.
I highly
breastfeeding.
recommend Catastrophe.
Oh my God, I love that show.
It's so inappropriate and
so
so
good.
It's
funny.
so great.
Oh my god,
Sharon Horgan is
she's
one of my
such
heroes.
a- she's so amazing. Okay, so then let's talk about how long you should breastfeed
Mhm.
because I feel like that's the next guilt crushing
Sure.
conversation.
Well, I think you both breastfed as long as you could, right?
Yeah.
Well, without you, in an ideal
Right.
world,
Right.
what do you want for the world of breastfeeding? What do you wish?
I want moms and babies to nurse as long as is mutually desirable. So what does that typically look like? 80% of women in our country intend to breastfeed.
Hmm.
80%.
That's a lot.
That when asked, how do you want to feed your kid? I want to breastfeed. By the time they leave the hospital, that number has dropped significantly. The number of people that make it past that 2 to 4 weeks of pain, which not everybody has pain, but many people who with kids with poor oral anatomy, not poor, tethered oral anatomy, don't make it past the pain. And then if we can help women return to work, the ones that need to at 3 months, then those are the big hurdles. But so few babies are being fed as the World Health Organization recommends, as the AAP recommends.
What do they recommend?
They recommend exclusive for 6 months, at least until a year, and as long as it's mutually desirable. So now we're calling it full-term breastfeeding. Breastfeeding into toddlerhood is full-term breastfeeding. So anthropologically, that's how long we fed our babies. But again, that's making everybody who couldn't feel like crap
Yeah.
when it was never their fault if they weren't able to. It's an ignorant medical system that doesn't yet know how to help you.
But what if when it's a choice? Like, for example, one of my best friends would go to the office and then she'd be sitting in her, the office bathroom with the foreskin, like where her shirt's up, like around her,
yeah.
her neck,
That's funny.
pumping 5 times a day.
Sure.
And she finally, at a year, was like, okay, I had a goal and now it's time. And I choose, because of my lifestyle, that this is not sustainable.
Sure. Most people, if they've made it breastfeeding to a year, the part they hate is pumping. So if women knew they could still maintain their milk supply and just nurse when they're with the kid and stop pumping, which is true.
You can
Yeah,
do
that happens.
Yeah.
Like, I know my aunt did just nighttime nursing for
Long time.
till they were 12.
So that's possible. So what it takes to maintain supply in the early weeks is vastly different than
Okay, that's
by
what
the
I
time
was
you
because
hit
you
it to
just
a
said
year.
you have to keep taking it out to keep
Right.
supply it, so it
that number
changes.
keeps changing. Yep.
Okay.
So that's why the mom who's nursing an 18-month-old might nurse twice a day when they're together and still do that until the kid is 2.5.
Right.
So just taking out milk twice a day, there's still enough milk that they're not making a full supply. They're just making a little bit.
I have to say that's kind of what I had wanted to do.
Yeah,
in my brain, I was
sure.
like, oh, and then we'll transition to just nighttime nursing just to get them to sleep or whatever. Because gosh, there's something wonderfully magical about when it
Sure.
works.
Sure.
It didn't work out for me.
So you think even though they're at that point eating food
Right.
and or drinking milk, I suppose.
We don't ever need to drink the breast milk of another species.
Okay.
Unless milk is something your family eats as a food. Like if you guys have cow milk in your fridge and you want your kids to drink that beverage, fine. But we don't need too.
Amen, sister.
Right. Well, 8 years ago, our doctors certainly were like, and how much milk are they drinking? They need milk.
And they'll still say that.
Yes.
They will. And then you know what
Because
I say?
again-
She eats spinach and gets twice as much calcium.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because again, we're still expecting doctors who know about meningitis and vaccinations and all of this pathology stuff that's real important
Uh-huh.
to know about nutrition. They are not well trained in nutrition, parenting, sleep. So they may not be your best source for parenting, nutrition, and sleep.
So what are the besides you? Well,
And the
okay,
Mama'hood.
and the Mama'hood. I mean,
Yeah.
where are these sources? Where are the reliable? You honestly, I mean, because I have. I mean, we looked online and there's
And
so
your band of
much-
mothers. I mean, if you're in the right groups with the
Well,
right people who've all tried lots of different
But
things.
that's a big if. I mean, that's what we're saying. It's like the people who are successful have their own life view of it versus
Right.
people who aren't, and the people who aren't don't know why it doesn't work. So
Right.
I do think, though, that this generation, your generation, does know so much about nutrition. You were able to speak back to your doctor and say, she doesn't drink milk. She eats spinach and gets twice the calcium. Like that sentence alone, you actually are the expert.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like there was somebody on our thread was like, or on the Band of Mothers site was like, I'm thinking of starting to give the baby formula. And we talked about this before. Like I was like, oh no, here we go. And everyone was like, well, this is what really worked for me and my baby. And I think that there is something to that, right? Then we're back in the cave and we're all just
Thank
helping each other
goodness.
out.
sure.
Thank
No,
goodness.
you're right.
Because that's where we should be.
Mm-hmm.
And no one should ever be shamed for feeding their baby food.
Right.
We have to feed the babies. And
Right.
there's ideal food. The food that 80% of people want to feed is breast milk.
Mm-hmm.
But because of an ignorant system, most of them are unable to. So we better have a pretty good answer. And thank goodness formula exists.
It's so interesting. In our show, Tracy tells the story of her struggles with infertility and the breastfeeding, and she, when she says that she gave her baby formula, it's right before a really great joke, which is fine. It's all a build up to this joke in the show, but I always can feel the silence. It's so interesting, and there's sometimes
There's
2
always-
or 3 people that are just
like
"Woo!"
yes,
like she said it, and it is this huge. And I love that we say it
Yeah.
because, as you've heard, her story, she had to feed her baby.
Right.
And it's so important for us to normalize motherhood in general and what we do in the show. But that moment is always such an interesting moment every single time we say it.
yeah,
Because mama's hearts are broken.
yeah.
And that is a medical system's fault. It is not the mama's fault. They feel such shame.
But you know who's shaming moms? That is your fucking fault. Stop shaming moms.
Yeah.
Stop shaming
Yeah,
moms.
shitty moms to other shitty moms.
If
is
somebody
definitely-
if somebody says they gave their baby formula and your instinct is to be like, breast is best, then go fuck yourself.
Seriously.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask you though. So you say, and I'm not disagreeing, that breast is best.
Of course.
However, there's a huge camp of people that are like, my kid had formula, they grew up fine, they don't have.
course.
And then I'm a double threat because I had a C-section, so Evie didn't get the microbiome through my vagina that now is going to cause her lifelong health. And she didn't drink breast milk. I mean, who
Right.
knows how much she ever even got from me, frankly. She probably just starved for the first 3 months. And then there's, I keep hearing like there's all these like lifelong repercussions, but my daughter is actually remarkably healthy.
Mhm.
So how do you marry this very, passionate plea that we should breastfeed
Mhm.
when you can also have proof that the kids who aren't breastfed turn
Mhm.
out just fine?
Sure. Of course they do. Because humans are amazingly adaptable and they can live on all sorts of foods. But we can't pretend that the milk isn't still the milk that bodies made for the babies we grow.
Mm-hmm.
So there's ideal and then there's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's remarkable that anybody is able to breastfeed in the systems that are set up now. We make it
Agree.
so difficult. And so we do know more. So we can't not ask questions about ideal gut biome,
Mm-hmm.
right? We can't have better practice until we know about that. Until we even know that being birthed through the vagina and coming in contact with all the stuff that is there is important, then we won't change systems that are doing routine cesarean birth. And there are excellent reasons for cesarean birth, but there are also a lot of unnecessary cesareans. We've got to get doctors to care about normal. So
Yeah. I mean, but what is normal?
normal is
Caveman.
caveman, but also lots of us died. And I don't want to live in the cave. Like I like
Right.
my manicure pedicure. So
Right.
I'm not idealizing
Right. Tracy
cave.
would have died if she was a cave woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're not cool with that either.
I definitely would have been kicked out of the tribe. I mean,
and I'm definitely not cool with you dying.
And I actually think that we would have had better answers back then for you.
well, someone actually probably would have fed my freaking baby.
Right.
right.
And somebody would have known because we wouldn't have waited until the kid was here. We would have already known. We would have had the wise woman with the long fingernail come and fix the tethers. And we would
Right.
have been feeding you the right plants and stuff to normalize your blood sugar. Like
or they
we
would have
already
taken one look
known.
at me who looked I mean, God bless Amy Schumer. I feel every ounce. I looked like I ate my husband. No one stopped me and said, there's something very wrong with you. So your body is rejecting whatever is happening. There's something wrong.
Right.
And no one ever really did anything
Yeah.
except give me an emergency C-section to make
Right.
it go away.
Right.
You know?
So I mean, we wouldn't have gotten to that place. Women
Yeah.
are too practical and pragmatic, and we pay attention to what's in front of us, and so we wouldn't have gotten to that place.
So you still didn't really answer my
No,
question then.
And I want to.
So strictly do you think that there are long-term repercussions for children who were not breastfed?
Yes.
Which are?
Who knows? Like for me, I have all kinds of issues. I was exclusively formula fed. Would the way I flip that on its head, would my health be better had I been fed the milk that I was intended to be fed? Sure.
Mhm.
But I mean, again, it's a privilege issue, right? We live in a country with clean water. We live in a country where you had access to formula to buy it. We have antibiotics, and we have, we live in and you live in a world in which you're very health conscious.
Mhm.
So we're able to mitigate a lot of the challenges that might be seen for somebody else.
Hmm.
So what might be in a developing nation a death sentence
Formula?
It's so different now.
is so different for you.
Okay.
And we have clean water, but Heaven Help Flint, Michigan.
Right.
So they're feeding their babies water that is lead based.
Right.
Well, and to the
So-
credit of science, they've hopefully developed formulas to be somewhat reflective of the health benefits of breast milk, right? So we're talking
I
about.
mean, I
No?
don't think they
No,
have.
they haven't.
Oh, they haven't.
They can't because, breast milk is a living substance, right? So they can't replicate it. What they can do is make it a better food. So we can't say it is more like breast milk because nothing is. Breast milk is
Why
alive.
can't you just powder breast milk? Like, why can't
Ooh,
you
guess
just
what?
What?
Okay, nurses rock. Okay, there's this nurse who is, so there's something that tiny NICU babies need called human milk fortifier. And it's basically a little packet, looks like a Splenda packet of formula that they put into the breast milk. Now, this is when we have plentiful breast milk because now we're using donor milk for all those fragile preemies because they don't tolerate cow milk formula or any kind of formula until their gut is more mature. But they put in cow milk formula into the breast milk, which then starts to mess with their gut. It can cause all kinds of challenges. Anyway, a smart NICU nurse figured out this device where you put something, a little bladder, into the mom's own milk. So these are moms that are able to pump milk. It sucks the water out and leaves the human milk concentrate. So someday soon, we're going to be able to make human milk fortifier from mom's own milk. How freaking brilliant is that?
So from another mom's own milk.
Nope. Maybe they could do it much more easily for the Mother's Milk Bank is here in Colorado.
Right.
And that's where moms who have too much milk are able to donate and give that milk. And then that milk is used for all the fragile, sick babies in all the hospitals.
Oh, that's what it's used for?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Which is amazing.
Totally.
Because like tiny NICU babies, sometimes their gut just can't tolerate anything other than human milk. So we can't argue the science of, are the two foods equal? Formula and human milk are not equal. What we can stop doing, though, is shaming people for using food, formula, for their babies when they were out of every other option. And we can start knowing the questions to ask while women are pregnant. Do you want to breastfeed your baby? Yes, 80% of you do. All right, then let's have some better freaking answers for you instead of try harder. Just try harder.
Or, I mean, we told this story in our birth story episode, but the hospital when Georgia was born didn't even give me an option. They were like, "Do you want your baby to get an IV or to have formula?"
Oh my gosh.
Our newborn
Oh.
who was in the NICU,
Oh,
and we were like, "I'd like to breastfeed her," and they were like, "I'll get a doctor." Then no one came, and then we walked up there and we stopped a conversation of people that were, I said, excuse me, I wobbled up there. I'd like to breastfeed my baby. A nurse heard me, got my cell phone number, and told me she would call me I know everyone's already heard this story.
It's okay. I love
I
it.
haven't.
And she said, give me your phone number. I'm going to call you every hour and I'm going to teach you how to breastfeed. And I would go downstairs and I would fall asleep and my phone would ring and I would waddle upstairs and wash my hands and put on the thing and the gloves and go up there and sit in this rocking chair. And she would bring little Georgia over to me and she would put her on my boob. And it was like, if she hadn't heard that conversation, I was literally up there being like, okay, well then just give her formula until the nurse heard me.
Uh-huh.
I mean, this is 8 years ago. That's not that long ago.
No.
No.
And
No.
nobody, I
And
didn't.
what is the impetus for that was just ease of use, guarantee that you're getting a set of vitamins that, I mean, like, why would they just skip over Shay,
And she was only in the NICU because she had a transitional grunt breathing
Uh-huh.
thing, which was like they just wanted to monitor her.
Right.
So they took her away from us, and she was fine. I get it. They have to be very careful, right? But then she wasn't she was,
Right.
she was fine.
She
She was
she
able
would
to
have been
breastfeed.
fine.
She was hardy enough that she could have been given the option.
She was not a preemie. She was
right.
not.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it was so bizarre. And that woman, I wish that I knew who she was because
Mhm.
I was too out of it to ever get her information. But it was
Right.
such a weird.
And that should have been step one. If a baby is strong enough to breastfeed, that should be our first option. And now, for many hospitals that are breastfeeding friendly, it is their number one option. So again, we have to get passionate about breastfeeding before we can ask the questions for the complicated situations and make the breast milk the first choice.
I mean, Tracy, you would have. I'm gonna cry. You would have been able to
Oh my
breastfeed.
God.
It's so insane to me.
it's so
Yeah.
not fair.
It's not fair.
It's not fair.
No.
And you guys have this joke about it on your show, but every time you tell that joke, I bet it breaks your heart just a little bit.
Actually, it feels better just to be able to say it because I know someone else out there, even if it's one person,
Sure.
someone else's boobs have fallen off.
Somebody else's, more than somebody. Many of the women in the audience were unable to feed their babies the way they wanted to. And for you to speak that truth makes them feel a little bit less heartbroken.
I guess I don't.
But
I
it's
don't know that you
such
can ever
bullshit.
shake it.
Like, I am not a rocket scientist, y'all. I am not. So this should be common knowledge for
Well, and it's
all
just-
providers. Like, it is not hard stuff.
No, and it's funny because it's as much wanting to do this for your child as it is ego, right? Like it's
Sure.
especially for me, someone who had to have a C-section, so I never got to feel a contraction. Like all of it was sort of taken from me, and
Right.
it's not really. I know it's not about you, but as a mom, like you can't.
Sure.
It's like you lose those opportunities, and you can't ever get them back.
Right. Right. And mamas should be allowed to grieve the loss of the experience they were hoping to have. And of course you're grateful for your child today. Of course you are. But you should also be able to grieve the loss of the experience that you weren't able to have without thinking that there was something you did wrong.
Yeah.
Because it was not something that you did wrong.
So, what are some other lifestyle things that moms can? We've talked about hormones. We've talked about there is an herb. What's the medicine called again?
Metformin.
There's metformin. What else? Metformin.
Yeah.
What other things? Or is that it? Or is it really physiological and you do actually just need the guidance of
So to make milk, we need to take milk out often enough. So we talked about cue feeding versus scheduled feeding. Scheduling will work for some people. Some people, their schedule will have to be more frequent in order to protect their supply. So we need stimulation. We need pumps that work. So when moms are back at work, they need a pump that doesn't hurt them and actually takes out milk.
the change, by the way, like these
Oh,
moms who
yeah.
come to the show are always like, check this out. And I'm like, what
like,
the?
Oh, I know.
mobile
It's the
pumps.
coolest.
That Willow pump that
It's
they
so
start it with their
cool.
phone and it's an app and
What?
it's crazy.
It's
and it's
so
crazy.
awesome.
And it works great for people like surgeons, ER docs, lawyers, people who can't take a break to pump. It does make your breast look enormous, but you could pump and it's discreet enough that no one would know what you were doing.
Well, I would really like for my
I
breasts to
mean,
look enormous.
Shayna's
So
like, let me just
Well,
sign me up. Oh my
the,
God.
I guess.
the one that's actually what I miss the most about breastfeeding is how big my tits finally looked.
They were gorgeous.
Oh,
So we need good stimulation. We need it to not hurt. We need the right hormonal stew,
Mm.
and we need some practical.
by the way, that's got to be your new mascot is Hormonal Stew.
I know.
And I just imagining this
Next
little
to,
dude
like-
I'm Hormonal Stew, and I can help you with all your breastfeeding needs.
He's definitely not
Oh
a
my
dude.
God.
No, it's totally a little dude.
Oh
gotta-
my
We got to
God.
bridge the gap, y'all.
And hormonal stew is something that I made up. Like, it's just
I
a
know.
way of thinking of it.
Yeah.
It's just thinking like we're trying to balance all these really subtle things that are not necessarily clinically so dramatic that they're obvious.
If I was going to title my autobiography, I think I would call it Hormonal, Stew.
Stew. I'll do a forward for
But
you.
now
Thank
it's a
you.
little dude to me. It's never going to be okay.
Stew.
Hormonal Stew.
fella.
He's actually in the
It's
shape of a
it's
paper
STU.
clip.
No, it's hormonal STU.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
STU.
I imagine him he's like a little chunk of meat. Like
Oh,
a,
no.
Like
I mean, like he's got a little
cupid.
baseball hat and he's the shape of a paper clip, like on your windows.
I'm
And he's-
hormonal Stew.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. Please. That is hilarious.
he's your new mascot.
It needs to be a thing.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Okay. All right. Hormonal Stew.
And we need some freaking practical advice that isn't mom shaming.
Mm-hmm.
So the one fireable offense at the Mama'hood, the Mama'hood is this resource here in Denver where you can get breastfeeding support, yoga, great gear, toddler
Postpartum
stuff,
help all over the
postpartum
place.
help, new moms group, sleep sport, blah, 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 baby wearing, all that jazz.
All the stuff.
But if you walk in and that is not what you came for, whatever the mom wants is what we care about. The one fireable offense at the hood is if you shame a mom.
Yeah.
If you shame a mom, you're not allowed to be there because it doesn't matter what the mama wants. Whatever she wants to do is what we're going to help her do.
Hmm.
If she didn't say, hi, I want support with breastfeeding, and she walks in formula feeding her kid, I need to have the respect to understand her decision has been made
Mm.
and she is happy with her decision now. If she's not asking for help, she's not asking for help.
Wow, that's very powerful because you, especially for someone like you who lives and breathes breastfeeding, that's a great word. I mean, respect, to just honor her choice.
Right.
With full
it's not
stop.
like she doesn't know that
Right.
breast is
Mhm.
best. Like that message is
She knows
freaking out
damn
there.
well what she's doing.
She has said, thank you very much for that information, and now I'm going to feed my kid. Then I high five her. Well done, madam. Good moms feed their babies.
Hmm.
And that's why we love you guys.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So tell us about what the Mama'hood can offer people who don't live in Denver.
So I feel so passionately about the way we do things there, that we come at all of these birthing and feeding and child rearing from an anthropological perspective. What I like about the anthropological perspective is that it takes out the guilt. Should I swaddle my baby? Should I buy the snoo? Should I hush? Should I use a pacifier? Should I use a bottle? Should I formula feed? Should I breastfeed? None of that really matters. What did we do in the cave? And how close can we mimic that? Because whatever we did in the cave was good for the baby. We could exchange a modern baby with a Cro-Magnon baby and the babies would be fine. We would lose our minds. So
Hmm.
whatever used to work for babies still works for babies.
But wasn't there a bigger mortality rate for babies, like
For
without
sure.
the advent of
Sure.
modern healthcare and stuff?
I mean,
so
of
how can you
course.
say it's
I can say the core need of our little tiny primates is the same as it's ever been.
okay?
So babies need to be birthed in whatever fashion they're birthed. Babies need to be held, babies need to be kissed, and they need to be fed. And we don't have to get futzy about what kind of food, what kind of baby wearing, who's holding.
Oh, really?
Well, there's ideal, and then there's the reality. The ideal is that we don't put our babies down. Like our closest primate relatives don't put their babies down for 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
But is that going to work in the modern world that we live in? No. So should a mama feel guilt and shame that she had to put her kid in the bouncer? Heck no.
Mm.
Like that is the reality of our life today. But should we hold our babies as much as is practical and pragmatic? Yeah.
Because those are the things that keep babies happy.
They need to be held. They need to be kissed. They need to be. Ooh, a cool thing about kissing, if you're making breast milk, is the kissing, you get whatever germs are on the kid. and your body makes the specific antibody to protect the kid.
That's awesome.
Like bodies are amazing.
Yeah.
They really are.
Still to this day.
Still
I can't
to
stop kissing them.
I know. Yeah.
I'm a little over the edge.
It's okay. So am I. I love it.
And yeah, we need the whole gut biome through vaginal birth versus cesarean birth, but I bet you had your baby on your body a lot because there's skin biome as well.
Mhm.
So that baby there, we need to stop with the one and done because either let's say you weren't able to vaginally birth and you had a cesarean birth for whatever reason, it isn't like the kid is screwed forever. There's other ways to take back normal. There's other ways to get that flora in the kid. This would be kind of gross, but you could do it. A mama could take a peri pad, the pad that all the blood and everything goes into after you have the baby. You could pat your chest with it, lay your baby on your chest, and the baby would get some of that gut biome flora.
Okay.
We're speechless. And
I did
silent.
not do that.
Did not do
but
that.
I'm
Nope,
into it.
Nope, but nobody even
No,
knew to
gotcha.
suggest that. Like that wouldn't have occurred to
And
anyone.
at the time, you probably would have done it because
Oh,
you
yeah,
wanted
I would
to
have
do
done
something.
anything. Yeah.
There's this whole thing called seeding where you put swabs inside the mom's vagina and you leave them there for a couple of hours before the cesarean birth. So that then, as soon as the baby's born, they can take the swabs out and smear the stuff on the baby's nose and mouth. So the kid gets the flora.
Oh,
There
wow.
are ways we have to start with what might have happened, what should have happened. How can we recreate that?
Huh.
How can we get the kid the thing it needed? Like there are workarounds, and we've got to be fired up as women so that people start asking the right questions. Let's deconstruct what we talk about and figure out why and how can we make it work.
And I love your analogy. I mean, let's take the two opposing parts essentially in the medical world and put them actually together where they belong
Right.
and figure it out holistically from a
Anthropological perspective. Yeah.
anthropological perspective.
Right.
So, Mamahood's website.
We have a great website. So anyway, I feel passionate about the way we do things. So I've decided that I can't be everywhere, but I can put some of this content online so that people can access it even if they're not here in Denver, so that I can help them figure out the right questions to ask. I can do a Skype consult. I can do a FaceTime
I was going to say,
consult.
can people call you?
Heck,
God.
yeah. Like if they're having these hormonal issues, I can at least give you the questions to ask your providers
Mhm.
so that we can start correcting for some of this stuff.
Yeah.
If a mama had fertility issues, some of the things that caused fertility issues might cause milk making issues.
It makes total sense. I mean, my hormones have been whacked my whole life. My
Right.
my hormonal stew
Yeah.
has been
Stew.
subpar stew.
She's had fucked up hormones.
Our stew doesn't taste good at all.
And then we could have placenta stew.
Gross, Amanda.
Add a little placenta.
Well, I have eaten placenta at the Mama'hood.
That's
actually.
right.
You have?
I did eat a
Remember when we were
placenta
doing
capsule.
that? We were doing an interview.
Yeah, and I ate someone's placenta capsule.
She did.
That is,
I'm not afraid.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I was that girl in college, so I'd do anything
Okay.
for a dare. I made a lot of money that way.
She
Ooh.
kissed a lot of girls.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I shouldn't say food related. I'll eat anything.
all right.
I swallowed a lot. I
Oh.
swallowed a lot of live goldfish. I'll
Oh
just say
my
that right
I'm
now.
pretty upset about what you did. Everything.
Oh my God.
Okay,
Amanda.
so and then I want you just to tell us, because I'll never forget, you told us at one point that you could make any mom lactate. Is that freaking true?
Okay.
You
Any
said
mom
it, Amanda.
lactate.
I know we were drinking, but you said it.
Any mom lactate. All right. Is it possible for a mom who wants to induce lactation for an adopted baby or a surrogate baby, or for somebody who wants to chest feed their baby, for them to be able to breastfeed? Yes. We need the same stuff. We need stimulation. So to induce lactation from scratch, you've never grown a kid, you're adopting a kid, you want to have milk when the kid gets here. Ideally, it takes about 6 months. We start with birth control pills because we need the hormones of pregnancy, which is estrogen and progesterone. You skip the sugar pills. So we need to find a provider who understands that we are inducing lactation, which their brain is going to explode. They don't even know that that's possible.
Okay, you have done this. You have done this.
Yeah, I've helped 36 women, and I'm waiting for number 37 to walk
Okay,
through the door.
Continue. I just wanted everyone to understand that
Yeah.
you have done this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not hard.
Okay.
It is, I mean, I'm not, anyway. All right. And so then once we've started the birth control pills, then the body thinks it's pregnant. And so you usually get a little tenderness, breast tenderness. And then we begin doing hand expression. So a couple of times a day, just start priming the pump, so to speak. So doing a little hand expression. Then we need to start something, a medication that tells your brain to secrete prolactin. So
Mhm.
again, hormones. We need hormones to make milk. All right. So we start that medication. And then about 4 weeks before the baby is due to be born, we start doing a lot of hand expression and pumping. A lot. One mama I worked with, when that new baby was born, she had 500 ounces of her own milk.
Shut the front door.
No. And so that baby, when it was born, was able to do the breast crawl on the mama
Oh.
and latch to her boob. She breastfed for 3.5 years through multiple challenges, adopted a new little baby boy, and breastfed that boy.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And she
Just
breastfed
blew my mind.
till 3.5, mostly because she wanted to still have everything rocking and rolling for when the new baby came. Amazing.
God bless her. And you.
I've had women come to me who said, my doctor said that wasn't possible. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Deconstruct. What do we
gift.
need? We need hormones, we need stimulation, and we need some hard work.
Holy McMoly.
It's
And that changes. I mean, that changes so much about adopting.
right.
You know, I mean,
Because think how many mama's hearts are broken because they couldn't grow their own kid. But if they knew they could feed their kid.
Oh.
The other thing that I'm passionate about is it never should have been a goal of making 100% breast milk. Not all women will make 100% of the food their babies need to eat. So it's more than just the milk coming out of the boob. The baby in that place is what is the bond. So it broke my heart when I heard this mama say, I never bonded with my baby. And she was holding her baby in a carrier and the baby was on her chest. That's a construct that lactation consultants misunderstood. We thought it was the milk coming out of the boob that was the bond. That is not true.
it's the mouth on the boob.
It is not even the mouth on the boob. It is the baby in the place. The baby in the center of the chest. That's where the bond happens.
But you said she was holding the baby in the center of the chest.
In her carrier. And she was weeping because she said, I never bonded with my baby.
Because she thought the definition
She
of
thought the
bonding is
definition of
breastfeeding.
bonding
and you're
was
like,
breastfeeding.
dude, you're bonding with your baby right now.
Right.
But she's already told
But
herself.
her heart was broken. She hadn't
Oh.
birthed the way she wanted to. She hadn't been able to feed her baby the way she wanted to.
gosh,
And now she
girl.
feels like she didn't bond. That is a construct that we lactation misunderstood.
Oh, interesting.
One
Oh,
way to
that's very
bond
interesting.
is the breast milk coming out of the boob to the baby, but it's mostly because the baby is in the right place. So dads bond with their baby the minute they hold their kids skin to skin.
Yeah.
They don't have to wait until a bottle is offered. The milk coming out of a bottle doesn't bond anyone. The baby in the right place bonds.
What is that like? Because it's your heart, like,
And
is it just
oxytocin. There's all these receptors in our chest that release oxytocin when we hold our babies right there.
Like,
I'm about to go get knocked up again.
I was like, I wish I had a
Totally.
uterus. I want to shove a
Please.
baby inside me.
I want both of you to so that we can make your breastfeeding relationship a different story this
Sure.
time. And we'll document it.
Oh,
Yeah.
It'll
yeah.
be so cool.
That would be if we weren't 150 years old. And me, I'm 250 inside and only 150 outside.
Stop.
We could, me and
Amanda's
hormonal
like, I'm
stew.
not you and
Oh,
hormonal stew
hormonal
and
stew.
stew.
Hormonal stew will knock you up.
No.
Oh, Amanda, this
Oh
has
my
been
gosh.
so amazing. We have been, since the day we started this
Mhm.
podcast, looking
Mhm.
forward to our
Yay.
breastfeeding with Amanda Ogden
Mhm.
episode.
Oh my gosh, you are a national treasure.
you.
Absolutely,
You guys,
Such
look
a gift
up
to moms.
Look up the Mamahood. Look up Amanda.
Mhm. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
And
Don't
be
feel
pissed.
bad.
Be pissed that
I
there are
love that we
better
can be
answers.
pissed.
Be mad. It is not mama's fault. And it's not the baby's fault.
Yeah.
Oh, Thank
Okay.
you. All right, we'll have all of the links and stuff in the show notes.
Yeah.
For you to find out more information. But Amanda,
Thank
We
you.
love you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
this week's episode is brought to you by Sarah O Jewelry.
If I could describe Sarah Old jewelry, I would say that if there was a way for me to get rid of every single piece of jewelry I own and replace it with only Sarah O jewelry, that's my life goal. That's how
mean,
beautiful it is.
She's incredible. Her designs are incredible. If you follow her on Instagram, you will see it is like
Ugh.
window shopping every day.
Gorgeous.
Rough cut diamonds and
A lot of organic stones, moonstone and labradorite and rough cut diamonds and, rose gold and
all ethically sourced.
yeah, and just And she is just such a wonderful person. If you guys have listened to her on our Birthing a Business episode, she's this beautiful ray of sunshine. She's a mom. And I just feel like the jewelry that you buy from Sarah O, you know where it comes from. It's not like a corporation. And I just feel like you're just getting good energy.
You're definitely getting good energy. And she just opened up a brand new store. So she has a location on Tennyson Street in Northwest Denver, but she also opened up a brand new store in the Dairy Block, downtown Denver, which is this
cool,
beautiful
trendy
new area. We're so proud of her, and we're so proud to have her involved in this podcast and in our Mother's Day Eve show. Check out Sarah O Jewelry. Have you ever wondered what the world would be like if daddies made the milk? This is one of the Pump and Dump show songs called If Daddies Made Milk, and I think it's particularly appropriate for this episode, and we hope that you enjoy. Whew. If daddies made milk, if daddies made milk, if daddies made milk, nursing would be an Olympic sport to measure how far their boobies could squirt. If daddies made milk, mommies would get more sleep, and refrigerators and comfortable benches for pumping would line the streets. If daddies made milk, while the mamas grew the babes, like sympathy boobies, it would force deadbeats to stay, and shirts would never be required. Tits would just be tits, and guys would gather in groups to hang and nurse and drink Guinness. If daddies made milk, if daddies made milk, if daddies made milk, paternity leave would be 3 years long, and baseball games would serve fenugreek dogs. I have a feeling all the daddies would be loving it when their nipple cream is paid for by the government. Government funded. I got my pump tricked out and my nipples all sore, and I'm running around town with my boobies engorged, yeah. I'm gonna pump it till the baby turns 10, cause I gotta do it the longest, yeah. I gotta pump 8 ounces cause we're men, and my boob is the strongest. If daddy's made milk, if daddy's made milk, if daddy's made milk, daddy's making mama milk. Daddy, mama milk. Daddy's making mama milk. Daddy's mama milk. Government funded. If daddy's made milk, if daddy's made milk, there would be no war.
We're on tour.
We got a tour update. Tour update.
Yeah. It's a big tour update.
Yeah, that last trip was a doozy.
Wow. Holy hell.
Holy
Obviously,
hell.
I'm still recovering.
Yeah, Tracy sounds like Kathleen Turner. We have Kathleen Turner on the show today.
I wish. Yeah, our tour. We had
So we had a doozy. We'll just give you, if you haven't followed along on our Instagram stories, we flew from Denver to Dallas, did a show that night in Dallas, drove a car from Dallas to San Antonio. It's normally about a 4-hour trip. We spent about 2 hours on the IHOP. So I would say it was like a 6-hour trip.
I don't agree with that. We actually spent 45 minutes in the IHOP. We spent 2.5 hours driving frontage roads to get to the IHOP.
That's absolutely true. If you are from Texas, you know what we're talking about. The
Oh my
frontage
gosh.
roads
and
were
the
pretty
turns
insane.
and the U-turn lanes.
And then we did a show in San Antonio, and then we got on a plane and
At the crack.
And flew to Houston, switched planes, flew to Sacramento, got picked up in a limo from the
Airport.
airport to the airport hotel. So we had about 5 minutes in a limo, you guys. And then
We had like an hour and a half to eat a meal that we hadn't had yet and shower and get ready.
mhm.
And then we wanted good food so bad, but we were in like an airport hotel. So we ended up grub hubbing sub sandwiches from somewhere, and it took like an hour to get us the sandwiches,
So
and
their
all we
winter
wanted
nap.
to do was to take a nap. I took a bath in the world's smallest bathtub.
She's the world's tallest woman in the world's smallest bathtub.
I had to keep moving to keep like one quadrant of my body covered. Like it was only one quadrant at a time, but it helped.
And then a very nice man in a nice car picked us up and took us to the casino, Gold Country.
Gold Country Casino, our first casino show.
In Orville, California, which was totally different than any other show
Yeah.
we've done. And that's all we'll
Super
say.
fun though. Shay's eyes glazed over when we pulled up to the casino.
At one point, I was up. So I had $100 budget. I was up 100 and I had walked away, you guys.
You did. And then I sat down.
Tracy, who never gambles, was like, I like this wolf machine or whatever the hell you were doing. And I was like, well, then I will sit down too.
Yeah.
And I lost the 200 in like 5 minutes.
You did. And I still left up. I still made $50.
I'm
a
very
good
impressed
gambler.
with you. I felt like it was worth the $100. That's how much fun I have.
You always feel like it's worth it.
Tracy took a picture that I didn't see until the plane. So then we had to get up 3 hours later and go on an airplane home, which thank gosh, we were so excited to come home. And then Tracy on the plane showed me this picture she had taken of me without my knowledge.
Looking at the slots with her slot face. You know how we talked about how she has. Have we talked about how you have burger face on this podcast?
Yes.
Yeah. So she has burger face, but she really has slot face, which is like which is this like
Glazed over.
euphoric
Smile.
the smile though, there's no teeth involved. It's just this grin, like this Mona Lisa grin, and her eyes get squinty and like totally devoid of like
Life.
understanding of space and time.
And money, understanding of money.
Sure. And she just stares up at the machines as if they are a god walking among us.
We'll have
She's
to
so
post
happy.
it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're home and now we prepare for the big Mother's Day
Day.
Eve show, which we're super excited about.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be so fun.
With the dance party after.
And Sarah O jewelry being given away.
I mean, can we just talk about
We're
Sarah
even giving
O?
away wine this time again.
We are. Sarah
Lots
O
of-
is giving away
Yeah,
wine.
Sarah O's giving away wine. Sarah O's giving away bling.
Um,
Dance party.
yeah,
So much fun. So excited.
so excited. So that's this Saturday. So thank you for listening.
And if you're in New York, suck it up and drive to Long Island and come and see us in Huntington. It's going to be a great show at the Paramount there too.
Yeah,
We know it's not the easiest place to get around to, but make it a girls trip. Don't people like go hang out and like spend the night in Long Island? I don't know. I don't think I've ever
well,
been to
apparently
Long
there's
Island.
like a cute little boutique hotel, like
Oh.
15 minutes from
Oh,
the
Great. Book
venue.
it. Book it, ladies.
Book it, ladies.
Spend a Saturday night in a hotel room. Not by yourself, but with your girlfriends. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's not really the same thing, but
It's close.
it's like the same thing without the masturbation.
Gross.
Well, if you're alone, okay.
That's in the song. Just listen to the song. All right. We'll talk to you guys later.